All right, folks, so previous video, which we'll throw a link up here too, we removed the engine in the Jeep Cherokee. I just wanted to kind of go over a few of quick tips, tricks, hints, whatever, with getting a long block assembly out of an XJ, the 4-liter specifically. The previous video was a lot of time lapse and not a whole lot of in-depth what we were doing. So I just wanted to do a quick video and show some tips and tricks, and give you a better idea of kind of the work involved with taking one of these out. So we'll start here in the engine bay. Obviously, good references for doing engine removal is the Haynes manuals, Chilton's manuals, all talk about it pretty good. As you can see, obviously, pull your AC compressor off, set it aside. Pull the power steering pump off, set it aside. Pretty much everything has to come off the block to get it to clear because of the way these engine mounts are, to include well, let's see real quick. So we did remove the AC compressor bracket because we used this bolt hole for the sling. The motor mounts for an XJ are kind of weird. They're sandwiched in. So you actually remove the mount cushion from the chassis once you have the engine slung. And then you pull the bolt out and get the motor mounts out of the way, because in this vehicle you actually have to slide the engine forward before you lift it out. Let's go to the motor itself. It's going to go in. You can see here that is one sling point. You can use this one, and actually on like putting these into CJs you can use this one, but into an XJ I use this one, and then I use the second head bolt from the rear. You can't get in and out using this one for the same reason why you can't get that head bolt out when it's installed in the car without pulling the head itself. So those are some of the tricks. What else? You can pull it out with your intake and exhaust manifold attached. That's fine, and we'll put the new one in that way. I do pull the power steering pump pulley assembly off just to get it out of the way, and of course the alternator, I take it out as well because it just gives some more clearance to get into the wiring harness. You've got in an XJ, you're going to have ground wires attached here, you're going to have electrical wires attached here, you're going to have grounds attached in here plus the coil bracket. You're going to have a wiring harness bracket attached here. If it's an automatic transmission, you've got your transmission lines coming up that are attached to the bottom. All of those have to come off to get this motor out. I talked about the upper bolts. So get something I can reach in there with, point out. The two upper bolts for the transmission come in here and here from that side. This transmission's lowered a little bit because the jack's leaking down. I got to pump it back up. You cannot get to these. You cannot get to these two bolts with the engine installed from the front without doing weird stuff like completely removing engine mounts and letting the motor down. You can get to them from the underneath the vehicle, but like I said in the previous video, it requires a U-joint, 3/8 U-joint, and about 4 to 5 feet of extension, and you snake all that up over the transmission and transfer case, and you get to those bolts from the backside. All right, so after a short break, probably the hardest part of this job is getting the E12 bolts off the top of the transmission that go into the back of the block. A lot of people will replace them with a standard bolt. In my opinion, if you've got the E12 sockets and the right tools, you just keep using the E12s. So here's how you get them off without doing anything weird like half dropping the transmission transfer case or removing a motor mount and lowering it down the front side to come in from the front. E12 socket, 3/8 swivel, and about 4 feet of extension. And you can snake this up over the transmission transfer case and get those top 2 bolts. Kind of takes, one person can do it, it's a lot easier with 2, so that way you've got one person to help you guide the socket onto the bolt and then pop them out. So when pulling the motor out of one of these and leaving the transmission in, you disconnect everything from the bell housing that attaches to the block or to the backing plate except the bottom 2 bolts. You leave those attached because you can get to those while the vehicle's on the ground. When removing one of these motors, get all your ancillaries off, all your wiring harness, all your vacuum hoses, all your water hoses, everything off and out of the way, leaving your motor mounts fully attached. Get the vehicle up, you'll get the access plate off from the bell housing, and that allows you to access the 4 bolts that hold the flex plate to the torque converter. Get those out. Once you, and double check everything underneath is disconnected. Get the vehicle back down, get your sling hooked up, get the pressure, pressure on the sling so the motor can't fall. Then you remove the motor mounts. Completely removed. Then you come underneath and you get to the 2 bolts on the bottom of the transmission, or the sides of the transmission at the bottom of the lock. Once those are out, then you can slip the motor forward a little bit, lift it up and on out. That's just a quick video I wanted to throw on there about that. Also, it helps to remove the hood. Also, if the vehicle is lifted, your cherry picker may not be able to get high enough. And the AC condenser or evaporator, whichever one, the little radiator in the front for the air conditioning, may get in the way. In my case, it was just in the way and we were able to pull it out across. But if you're on a lifted vehicle, in the case of mine, I've got the upcountry lifts, it's about 1.5 inches of lift. If you've got the same problem, then you may have to shorten the chain on your cherry picker or deflate your front tires just enough to clear that AC condenser. I can't think of anything else as far as tips and tricks. Just be slow and methodical. Mark your wiring, mark your vacuum hoses that you disconnect so that you know everything goes back in the right place. And if you're talking about, the last Jeep XJ was built in 2001, so at this point, the newest one you're going to find is 21 years old. And if you're doing an engine swap on it, more than likely it's got more than 250,000 miles on it. A break-free lubricant is going to be your friend. It is a very tight engine bay. You're going to be up and down and underneath getting some of these bolts, and it takes a lot of time. That's all I've got for now. Next episode, we're going to do all of our long block ancillary swaps. So if you like this content, go ahead and like it, subscribe, hit that bell icon for future notifications, and as always, there's more to follow.